to be there tomorrow at 6, so. And that's 75 miles from the state to the hour.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I 150 in the weekend.
it's tough.
Yeah, I did 80 last
Right when you
weekend,
start
so,
clearing the bar, so.
yeah, working my way up.
It's part of it.
And I feel great, so. Yeah, it's it's all conditioning, you know.
your own horse, so you bought it?
Oh, no, my bicycle.
Oh, like a bike?
Yeah, my bicycle.
Good boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, I know, we were, it's funny, we just have so much fun, I'm moving Team Spinal Tap, which is about 80 people, and then there's 6 of us girls that we ride together, and they sing. The people that have the motors on their bicycle, they're cheap.
I do too.
Yeah, it's all, I never thought, if you asked me 10 years ago, would I be doing this, I would say you're crazy, and here I am looking
The more
forward to it.
practice days will be fun.
But it's like conditioning, you know.
And I only say that because like the water, and it actually gets heat, so you keep your office until you take the
But,
bar.
you know, when I go on like this, it's flat, it's like this up, I mean, there's some elevation. I did a cancer ride, and it was my first Centurion, and it was heavily hilly. No, it's too much pressure.
Some people
I
don't like
couldn't fundraise, I'm at, almost at 750. Yeah, but if you don't fundraise, then there's going to be part of the difference. I just don't want that.
Good, how you doing, brother? Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So you got the tripod going? Real professional.
Oh, it's not, it's the 10th and the 11th, but I did 80 miles last week. I made 5 miles last couple of times. You just see me waiting. We're getting ready.
I think Jim only a few minutes late.
Yes,
Here he is. Oh, he's
Where's the one?
I can't promise an answer, there's no scoreboard. They missed half the points each team did, and they each took scored, it's hard, the sun is right in your eyes.
No, he asked him about that.
Oh.
And then, he'll be appointed. So,
Where?
you want him call on me? Yeah, I'll be absent. So, it's 7 o'clock, it's past.
Okay, at this point, we'll call the meeting to order. It's being 7 o'clock at home, enough people in here. And what else shall we do?
Review the minutes.
Looks like
The minutes are pretty expensive
I'm going to,
to,
share this with you.
here's one of the principles. We need bigger chairs, taller chairs for people like you.
motion that we accept the minutes of 1/27/21.
Also move.
Aye.
Discussion first, discussion, we had a little discussion, is there any discussion, or additions or anything to it? Okay, then we vote, right? Okay,
And,
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bob, I'll have you abstain.
Yeah.
On that one, and
Aye.
John.
That's 1/27/21.
You want to the next one?
Four fourteen.
Next set, is everybody ready to consider that one?
Not yet, just.
Okay.
I move to accept the minutes of 4/14/21 as written.
It's a pretty complex
Yeah.
set of minutes. I think they're pretty well done, except that I worry that we we could be omitting something, so I wondered if anybody has any additions or any corrections that you know of or can testify.
Discussion.
I think that I accept them because I think Darlene did a good job of them, so.
Well, see no response from anyone to the contrary, I think that we should move to accept them.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. The next item on the agenda, who set the agenda up? Did you, Darlene?
Yes, I just copied the last one and changed the date.
Okay.
So the reorganization of the committee, as we know, Gary resigned, the chair. So. Jim.
I'd like to nominate Bob Aramo to be the new chair.
I would like to second that. And may I give some reason? I mean, you are the person that has been out on most of the inspections and complaint calls and such, and I think you have the most experience in this recent last couple of years to help us do the work of this committee. So I think that you're our man.
Thank you, Dick, I appreciate that. Just fortunate enough to work in close to town, so.
Yeah, well, I did wonder, does anybody, when we start going into discussions, based on our last few meetings, our last meeting, the conflict idea is something that I wanna make sure that we cover, and I wanna make sure that we know, like I can give you an example. My son had a permit, small permit, a while back, and I recused myself from everything involved in that, including the visit. So, I just wanted to make sure that we continue to follow that type of thing. And that has nothing to do with me and making
Yeah.
a second or the other appointment.
I also think that we should also, think about visiting with KP Law to make sure that we go over that
Mm-hmm.
and have them define it to us in legal terms.
Yes, yes, good idea.
Can't hurt,
No.
more educated we are.
Well,
about it, yeah.
we've run into this, last situation with we have some concerns, and so have the people that have come before us.
And
So, we need to make sure that we're on firm ground. Because the next, discussion, and I don't think this has anything to do with where we go on our reorganization, so we don't need. You got any more that we need to discuss directly about, who's gonna call for the vote? You, Jim?
What's that?
For Bob, as you made the motion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you seconded it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Should there be?
we have any other nominees for the chair? No.
Do you have any, does anybody else have any other nominations?
Okay, the nominations are closed, with Mr. Aramo being the only nominee. All those in favor of having him as the new chairman, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Very, and yes, no. I think that means that he's now the chair.
Do we have, may I bring this up?
Yep.
Do we have the need for a vice chair? We never have had it. you have a opinion on it?
I don't think it's a bad idea. We can do it.
Yeah.
We depended almost
So-
completely on Gary.
Yeah,
Garrett's.
yeah.
And you were kind of a vice
Vice
chair
chair without
and,
being a
and
vice chair.
without being, you know?
And then Gary got sick there for a while.
Right.
And we were hurting.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't hurt to have the vice chair.
It wouldn't hurt, to us, and as far as, it being legit, is there anything in the bylaws that says that,
I
that we
think
can't
we
have
can,
vice chair?
Point of information, that can help you out at all. It's a great idea to have a vice chair. If you go on vacation and an issue comes up,
Right.
the other board members, if they do not have a title, are not empowered to make a decision on behalf of the board. Only the chair can, and the vice chair in your absence. So it's protective for that. You know, on a completely different topic, there's a gentleman videotaping in the room. I didn't hear an announcement made as to who he is, where he's from, and an announcement to the audience that this is being videotaped by an outside party. That's unacceptable. That needs to be made clear to everyone walking in the room before the meeting starts, so that if we don't choose to be on that videotape, we can walk out of the room. So it needs to be identified just for your own and for the audience's benefit as to who this gentleman is and from where he's from and so forth and so on. And I'm Alan Germain from 24 Pine Street.
Hi, may I? Blessings, you guys. I'm John Gonzalez, Standing Bear Network, Elevating Indigenous Voices. And I've been asked, to come down and film for the community. For people that can't otherwise say make it to these meetings. And, there's a lot of, important things that are said. And, they want to know what's going on as far as the new chair. And, my condolences going out to, of course, the family, because that's a really tough thing. But, thank you for letting me share space with you guys here. I've been here before, right, several times. I know you guys. But I want to thank you on behalf of the community and Standing Bear Network.
Thank you.
You have every right. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. It's courtesy that you notify and identify. It's not like we've hired Area 58 to come in and take the meeting. You certainly have every right to. It's a public meeting.
I have a question about this. It's fine that he's filming, so on. However, we are not getting a copy of the film, and we should be, because we are the people having the hearing, and we should be getting a copy of that.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
please make sure that happens in the future, that everything that you film is provided to us, say on the DVD or whatever.
You're not going to get it on a DVD, but you will get it on Community Land and Water
That
Coalition.
requires us to go to them and copy it down from them, right?
It's public. It's all public access. Not everybody knows about Facebook, but it's a public venue.
That's
Do
okay.
you know the link?
The link,
Yeah.
look up Community Land and Water Coalition. Yeah, Community
I
Land.
really think that,
Serving Plymouth, Carver, and Wareham, of course.
I really think that because you are the person or the people that selected you to come and record this, they are responsible for then feeding that. Not simply putting it out into the ether. I believe that they should make a copy of it to the committee.
We could email you a link without problem.
Email you a
I
link.
want a copy, not a link, I want the copy to
Because the
it.
links
C-O-P-Y,
can disappear
to stay?
sometime.
No, these links don't disappear.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
This is public. Yeah.
The issue doesn't become the link that you can look at tomorrow. The issue becomes the link you can look at 5 years from now when the video possibly could not be the whole story. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Could it be modified? Could it be altered? Could it be selectively cut and pasted. Would it ever happen? I'm certain it would not. Could it happen? Of course it could. We've just gone through a very contentious 4 years where we've seen the media pick and choose bits and pieces that they wanted to make a point with. So could something like that happen where this is not, and so I understand what Jim is saying. If he has a hard copy within 10 days after the meeting, then this is the hard copy, and we can't alter that so that if you're looking at something 5 years from now. And if it were my position, that I agree fully with Jim. This needs to be, because we don't know what you're gonna do with it later.
Well,
I'm not trying to say it's gonna be nefarious, but
okay, I am indigenous media, okay, and,
We could,
excuse me,
we could arrange to have the local, Area 58, it's called, group recorded, which, they're the other people who record a lot of the meetings.
yeah, I mean, it's a public venue.
Do you have a town network?
Yeah, Area 58.
Yeah, so I mean, why not just have that at the same time, you know, where it's tax-paying anyway, right? Just
it
have
actually
them
is,
come.
it's a free service.
What's that?
Area 58 is funded by Comcast.
Oh, is it?
It's a public venue. I mean, maybe you guys have a certain protocol that needs to get put into place with respect to media. I don't know what that is or what it looks like for you guys. But this is live. Okay, so everything that we're discussing right now is being live broadcasted. Right now we have 6 viewers and we'll probably increase exponentially as the meeting continues. You know, it's about, you know, it's not about disrespecting anybody. It's about elevating the voices of those most heavily impacted communities. Okay, it's about wanting a response to the, you know, for the complete moratorium on all of this, you know, removal. And the community wants answers. Not everybody can make it to this meeting. Okay, so this is a way. I didn't intend to speak to you guys tonight. You know, I guess I'm glad it came up. You know, but yeah. So this isn't entirely. It's a community effort. It's a community-led effort. It's about elevating the voices of those most heavily impacted communities. It's also about elevating indigenous voices, about the rights to free, prior, and informed consent, and the United Nations, you know, Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, of which the United States has become a signatory. I believe it was back in 2016. So we have an obligation to this Mother Earth, and you, as the Earth Removal Committee, you know, you have an extremely large obligation to the people of your community and to our grandchildren. You know, so the community wants answers. I want answers. I want to know what the response was, you know, to the, you know, to the meeting that was here. What was it, last week? You know, I want to know what people have to say in response to the community coming together and saying, you know what, enough is enough. There's way too much aggregate, you know, being ripped out of these.
Sir,
Yeah.
you are now taking positions and producing everything.
Thank you.
That's not your place. You're to be the recorder.
Thank you. That's what I intended, and I apologize for going on into that tangent. Again, I didn't intend that to, you know, to even be public. Maybe conversations like this are better left before or after meeting. So I apologize to the board.
It might be better for us then to have the disinterested party, Area 58, do the taking.
Okay, I don't know who that is.
We could arrange for them to give you a copy of their tape so you could put it into your network.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good start. Thank you for that suggestion.
So on to the agenda.
Vice Chair.
So on to the agenda. Let's discuss the site visits from 5/1/21.
Can we just finish our discussion on Vice Chair?
Oh, Vice Chair?
Yeah.
I think you already have.
No, we haven't finished. We have, I was thinking of recommending someone.
Oh, you did, I'm sorry.
If we had somebody who would be willing to serve as a Vice Chair person.
Is there, I know there's a new member looking to, maybe get on the committee, but their application is in front of the selectmen and then he has to be appointed by them.
I wonder if that would be, accomplished by our next meeting.
No,
No.
probably not.
Table this and then come back to it when we have a full.
I think
board.
Mike's got a good suggestion. Yeah, when we table it till, we have a full committee.
Including the new person or
Right.
whoever else comes, so
Right.
we'll also leave it till whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion, Vice Chair?
No, we're gonna just table it till, we have a full committee.
Need a vote to table.
Pardon?
Motion.
Need a motion.
Also move that we table the discussion on the vice chair until our membership is refilled.
I second.
Thank you.
Vote on that one, Bob?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, on to the next one, discuss site visits from 5/1/21.
Yeah.
Not me, first, as you know.
May first.
Where'd they go?
So, yeah, we went to, on 5/21, it was with, Ms. Sheehan's,
Oh, yeah, you didn't get to go.
yeah,
Was it?
you were there.
Okay, who was,
Mr. Is it Garner or Gardner? Patrick? Patrick Garner? I don't know if I pronounced his name right or not, but,
Okay.
What was the bottom owner?
we visited, Makepeace's 3 sites.
Okay.
No, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I'm pretty sure.
You weren't there.
No.
So, you, John, Gary, Michael, you were there? Yep, you were there, right?
That was and the gentleman was there with his BMW, he was an engineer
Yes,
coming to watch. And so that
Yes.
was fine.
and we never got any, feedback from him, did we? Yeah, so, we went there, Mr. Garner didn't say much, as far as we saw everything that was going on, everything was, as far as the trees cut back, everything was in the phases they were supposed to be at. Dust control come out of each one. It wasn't open that day, but everything was neat and, you know, there was no,
So was that?
dirt on the street, you know, it was all 3 permits. We visited all 3 sites.
Which, could you name them, Bobby, which?
Those permit,
On
for
Federal Road?
those, yeah, on Federal Road.
GAF was there.
So, yeah, and GAF was there with us, sorry about that.
As well as Mr. Makepeace, I don't know.
Jim Kane was there, GAF engineer Bill Madden was there, Patrick Gardner was there, and then some of the members from the committee. So, John, do you have any, input on what was discussed, what we saw? Michael?
We just saw all 3 sites.
These are the ones that want the golden.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The ones that are in question.
Right.
Right.
That brought their attention. We have somebody trying to get.
Yeah, hi, I have a question, my name's Joe Falconeri, I'm a local resident, living on Marion from Middleborough, work in Kingston now as a land steward.
Yep.
I drive through that way to get to work every day.
Yes.
I read in the paper, everything looks to be good, that sounds great. But what about the records of where all this is going? And, you know, is that public? Is that part of the process of what you guys govern? And what do those records show?
As far as records is what?
Where the aggregate is going, how much has been taken out? Like, are there records in
Yes,
place?
there's plans for each permit, there's plans, and there's an end to each plan. There's a volume of yardage that's being taken from those plans for each site. And there's the truck counts, we get paid 10 cents per yard, so we match that with the yardage to each permit. And at the end of that permit, when it's complete, it's a 12 months review, if the yardage matches up with the monies. That's how we determine pretty much how everything's done. And everything's done in phases. So, yes.
I don't wanna speak for the gentleman, but I think he's asking a different question, which is to say that, how do you know the before and the after to determine the yardage to match it up the way you just described?
So each plan has a topography of the yardage that's done by an engineering firm.
And at the end of the phase,
Yeah,
you intend to then have an independent engineer or the same engineer go in and measure the after?
well, that's part of the new discussions we're gonna have tonight on changing things.
Because you would agree, of course, that unless you had a certified beginning and a certified end, it would be impossible for anybody to
Well-
determine whether they took a spoonful or 1,000,000 cubic yards, right?
Well, it's a professional engineering group. I don't think they're gonna tarnish their name to falsify plans, if that's what you're insinuating.
Not at all, not at all. I'm asking purely a
Explain that to
procedural
me, 'cause
question.
that's what it sounds like.
Okay, well, let me ask it a different way, because
Okay.
you certainly misinterpreted it. If you have a certified engineer that says this is the before,
Right,
it's your intent to have a certified engineer to say, here's the after, correct?
yes.
You're gonna subtract,
If you, our engineer, this is where he starts, and it would include what he's establishing as the volume in that total project, or that cube of the project, okay? So he's giving us a before and after volume.
right,
So why do we have to have an engineer certify that it's complete when he knew the ends of it?
I think what Mr. Cosgrove was getting at is that he's saying, well, how do we know that elevation 100, assumed elevation, is actually elevation 100 and not 120? And
Isn't that what the engineer was establishing?
and that's what I'm getting at, is that.
so let's take a
professional company,
hypothetical, let's say the engineer comes in, he sees the before, he sees the after, and 1,000,000 cubic yards have been removed, right? And the permit was only supposed to take 500,000 cubic yards, well, then there'd be an issue.
Yeah. Well, there's an issue because prior to that, on that kind of yardage, it is done in phases. So each phase we usually go to, we don't issue the next phase until the first one's complete.
Great.
So then we match up the yardage to the monies that we received. So if they've taken 200,000 yards, we know that there's, another 800,000 left, so forth in phase two. That's probably a 4-phase 1,000,000 yards, a 5-phase.
But it's actually more complicated than that, right? Because, let's take your example, let's say they're supposed to take 1,000,000 cubic yards, let's just say, right? And you find that they took 1,000,000 cubic yards. And then you look at your sheets, and they haven't paid you 10 cents per cubic yard per million. That's because they're entitled to take some of it for their own use, true?
Right.
Okay, so what is your protocol to determine and to document that portion which they took for their quote-unquote own use?
We'll have further discussions of this issue, on other committee meetings when we decide how to best attack it. We should have the initial company engineer would say, certify that they're gonna take out 1,000,000, and when we get to the end, maybe we'll have another engineer verify that the 1,000,000 came out, rather than, trust the original engineer. So
But
that's
it's,
something
it's,
for discussion.
I know what you're
You
saying,
understand
he's,
something,
he's talking about the ag part of it, so all their slips are saying their ag use of where it goes and whatnot. Right.
Yeah.
So all the slips say agriculturally used or for their own properties, so that's, and it has to be, refined to be more, strict about it. So that's the discussions that we're gonna have about revamping some of the conditions that we do.
so the forms that are filled out now,
Mhm.
and I have some with me
Mhm.
as examples. So as you understand it, those forms should have set forth the total amount that was removed by day, regardless of whether it was sold to a third party or whether it was ag.
Right. And most of the slips on their slips say where they're going, so they made it, like Makepeace has rebuilt 100 acres at one time, so the amount of yardage that takes.
When you say slips, what are you referring to?
They're scale house slips, they're documented slips.
So you're not talking about this?
Well, we can match those up.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the scale house, this is exactly what I wanted to ask, thank you for bringing it up. So whenever anybody orders sand from Makepeace, or Reading,
Yeah.
there's a slip,
Yes,
and the slip looks like what, and is delivered to who and when?
that says it on their slips, I don't know what their slips actually look like.
We don't get this.
We don't get their slips.
So when you
We
go
get
and
the
buy
town.
sand from Makepeace, for example, you don't get a slip or any invoice?
Yes, an
bill or anything?
individual would get the
Yeah.
slip, yes.
In your example, when you buy sand from Makepeace, they don't give you any delivery slip, quantity, date, price, nothing?
No, he thought we didn't get, earth removal committee doesn't get their slips. Yes, as an individual, if he was buying sand, would get a slip.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
So when you buy sand from Makepeace, do they give you a slip when they deliver it? Do they give you a slip when you pick it up? How does it work procedurally?
We have no idea.
I've never bought sand from Makepeace, so I wouldn't know.
Have you, Mr. Sherwood?
Have I bought sand from Makepeace? Yes.
Okay, so when you buy it, do you pick it up yourself or do you have them deliver it?
I'm not answering your questions.
You're not answering the question. Okay. So if a committee member is not gonna answer a question about the slips, then how do you use the slips to do the calculus that you talked about?
We go by the plans, the yardage amount of the plans, in the tally of monies that we receive.
So going back to a hypothetical,
Mhm.
we got a permit for 1,000,000 cubic yards. We're making these
Yes,
numbers up.
yep, yep.
Your engineer says, yikes, they took 2,000,000 cubic yards.
But they don't get to that point, Barry, is what I'm telling you, because on a, we have phases and we have inspections, and we know at what, like, at halfway through, they got 500,000 yards.
When was
Three-quarters
the-
of the way through, it's 750, so we know they're getting to the end.
When was the
We
last?
know the limitations of the tree cutting prior to them even taking any dirt.
So when
That
was the
falls
last,
into the layout of the project.
when was the last inspection that was done and who did it to say where they stand on phase 1 or phase 2, whatever?
We were just there on 521.
They just did that.
What technique did you use on 521?
So on the plans, they have the topos of trees where the cut is to. And we go by the engineered plans of where the tree line is cut, and we accept it. That's phase 2, we're not gonna cut any more trees until phase 2 is complete.
But you have to not just calculate the cut of the trees, you have to calculate the depth, right?
Absolutely,
Right?
yes.
So how do you?
Because there's a finished grade to the project that they're doing. Yeah, elevation 100 to elevation, say, 20.
So when you were there that day, you took the finished grade?
They showed us some subgrades. The subgrade, finished grade, there's different grades. And they say we've gotta go about another 2 feet, and on stake, it'll say, elevation, 28. So that means they have another 8 feet to go to get to elevation 20, and this is just,
So do they,
Right.
again, I'm just asking the question, you were there, I wasn't, so
Right.
is it sand staining, or do they actually have, sightlines?
they have stakes, when they keep going back with each phase, there's stakes in the ground that emphasize where that particular bog is going, or water hole, and a grade on it.
Okay, so your intent then is to go to Makepeace, and ask for every single solitary slip, to use your term, which is a piece of paper which identify the date, the quantity, probably the
Those are
trucking
the
time.
discussions that we're gonna have, the best way to attack that.
But if you didn't do that, it would be either guesswork or honor system,
Well,
right?
it's your honor system from a professional engineering company.
But we'll discuss how to handle
We're
this. in the
gonna
future.
have discussions about that, and if any legalities of what you're concerned about, I mean, we're not here to do that, we're just the earth removal committee.
But the
So
account-
you'd have to ask town council about it.
I don't know anything about town council, I'm a businessman, I'm looking for math.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking, I'm saying, okay, how do we do the math? That's all I'm asking, and that, as I understand it, is exactly what you exist for. That you give a permit for a certain quantity, and you're not supposed to take any more than that.
Right.
And the exception to that, of course, is if you use it for your own use, you take it by yourself for yourself, then that gets netted out. So would you expect that the slips would explicitly identify those truckloads that went for quote-unquote own use?
That's a Makepeace slip. We don't get their slips. They will produce them if we ask for them.
Okay. But you would agree that if you didn't have them, there is no way for you to conduct an audit to get the math right, true?
I don't understand where you're going with this.
I understand you don't.
Because, again, if the permit is for 1 million yards,
Yeah.
we're getting 10 cents. It's pretty simple math, as you said before, it's 8-point math.
Okay. So let me
If
ask
we
you,
don't end up with that money, then there's something wrong.
so they're paying you 10 cents even for the sand that they take for their own use?
It's calculated out on their slips.
Okay, so they're paying you 10 cents?
Is there a point of order here? I mean, this is just an ongoing dialogue.
Right.
One
Yeah, this is becoming,
It's
this is becoming a hit job, and I strongly recommend you stop the discussion and maybe invite counsel. Because this is nothing more than a fact-finding hit job on this gentleman's part to disqualify and disgrace the earth removal committee.
Sir, you have a form that says that they
I
pay
would
10
stop
cents.
the discussion.
We're gonna
My
stop
question
the
is, do
discussion, Barry.
they pay for all of them or
We're
not?
gonna
That's
stop
it.
the discussion on this. We have earth removal business that we're gonna attend to.
This is a question about the charges
Again,
for earth removal.
you're gonna have to talk to town council.
Point of information, it's also not on the agenda,
It's not on the agenda.
so.
Well, actually, it is on the agenda. It is on the agenda. And maybe we're ahead of it, and if that's the case, let's wait till we get to it. Potential process and procedural changes. So it is on the agenda.
For us, not for you. For us, not for you to discuss. We're gonna discuss that.
But it's a public hearing,
That's right.
right? And
Right.
you're gonna throw out some ideas.
Yeah, but we're not gonna answer your hypothetical question. So we're gonna discuss how to
I'm not
rectify
asking for
things.
hypothetical
Yes, you are.
question.
Yes.
You
But
want-
anyways,
This
we're gonna
form-
stop this right
This
now.
form says it's 10 cents per cubic yard. My question was.
Sir, you're being disruptive. This is a public meeting. You need to be recognized by the chair to
And
even
you
speak at
haven't
the
been.
public.
No, look,
And he's ended the discussion, I'd like you very much to be quiet now.
I understand that it's uncomfortable for the
This
This is
gentleman.
the end of the
Yeah.
discussion, Mr. Cosgrove.
It's a straightforward question. Do they pay
This
10
is
cents
the
for
end of
all
the
of
discussion.
them?
You're not
He
listening.
is running the meeting.
This
You
is the
know
end of the
that.
discussion, please.
If he says it must stop, the next thing, he would have to have you removed. Okay?
I understand these are uncomfortable questions for all of you.
Well, that's not the problem.
They're not uncomfortable. It's just not.
We are at a point where we need to sit back with our committee and discuss where we're at on the process and possible changes. That's so, for your discussion to be pinholing us on something, we have to work some of
If
these
this
things
committee
out.
can't answer a question about what the 10 cents applies to, that's not pinhole. That's not pinhole.
Did you,
Sir, you're out of order. We just said we're not gonna discuss it, so, thank you. So, any more discussions on the site plans for
you
5?
have a question?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see him, sorry.
I just have a question about the process. So it goes in phases, like you said, right? So after each phase with the inspection, does the engineering firm come back in and with their engineering equipment?
So we're right back to the
So
same
we're right
question,
back
he
to the
just
same
ruled
thing,
was
I
out
was
of order the
just
first
gonna
time.
say that, that's not on the agenda.
though, right?
It's not on the agenda for tonight. So. Any other discussions about, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Our internal discussion, which we're gonna have to do, to go over what we do for the process, is something that we agreed somewhere along the line here, that there may be some things that we could do to improve the whole process.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm wondering how the rest of the committee, how you folks would like to approach that. Is you expect to just cover review all the things that we do, at like this meeting, or do you want to, should we be reviewing what we do? And then, what has been suggested, and try to revamp the process a little bit so that it fits
Yes,
And I remember you pointing out something that maybe we need some additional engineering input in the future to make sure that we don't have gaps
right,
in here.
right.
And,
We had talked about a second party or third party going in and doing calculations on each phase that's been done for estimated volumes and stuff like
yeah,
that,
and
to
then,
make sure.
yeah, and maybe we need to have more contact with that engineer,
Yes, Right.
maybe possibly at our meetings or something.
and we also discussed, a weekly inspection, or bi-weekly inspection of every site.
And you'd have to,
And
that, your idea would be that that would be the engineer's
it could be, or it could be an appointed ERC person, to do those weekly or bi-weekly inspections, whatever we discuss.
So it could be a town employee or
Could
something
be,
like
yeah,
that.
could be something like that, yeah.
How, should we be studying this a little more in depth than just?
Yes, we should, so our first thing, and, I'm gonna ask the committee, we should take what we have existing.
The process.
And go over the process,
Right.
and then we should be able to revamp what we can do better. as we
Right, see where the
move forward.
shortcomings are.
Yes, yeah,
All right, now, do we have our present process? Maybe Darlene can
So
answer this better.
yeah,
In a, like an outline form, that we could sit down at the next meeting and go through step
step
by
by
step?
step, yes.
We do have that, Darlene?
I can get that
Yeah.
for you.
Yep.
Right now, what we have is, per individual permit, and what they're submitting on a quarterly basis, and everything is tracked in their permit folders.
Right.
Okay, so,
So it would almost be like adding more to the order of conditions.
Correct.
That's how I would add it, so.
Yeah.
I think we should go over the existing order of conditions.
I
Let's
think
start
that-
there.
Yeah, I think that would be, maybe that's the first thing that we can do next time. Maybe Darlene would have could put together an outline
Yes.
for us on that.
Mhm.
And,
Sure.
and then we could work from there,
Right.
and then we could add our ideas on improvements
Right,
and take into consideration what's been brought to us by people.
so Darlene could email us each, copies of the order of conditions, and if we, and then before the next meeting, we can all review them and have our own ideas.
We also
Homework.
have the permit information sheet that has everything, all the active permits in town.
Right,
And then that also has the information of when it was approved and what the cubic yardage is for
Right.
that. So we have that information right there.
yeah,
The last sheet,
Yeah.
maybe?
So this kind of outlines a lot of the process we're talking about. Okay, data permit, project location,
And the site
Description.
visit,
date of order of conditions. So
Yes.
we need to know what fell into that category. And
this
then,
has to be updated though, it hasn't been updated since the winter, so now I'll go in and update the 521 visit
Yeah.
to the Makepeace sites,
and maybe, do we have any more elaboration on the description of the project?
no, I just actually put in the cubic yards, but I can
Okay.
add to that.
Well, I only wondered if there's a column that we should have here, engineering output or input,
yeah, comments, under the engineering comments and
Yeah.
stuff.
on anything that we have like that.
Yeah.
And, then what about things like the number of trucks and the concern for school buses? And, the schedule that way, and, what we allowed in terms of what days of work, and then Saturday work if we allowed it or whatever. What else might be that?
That's a
we
lot
presently-
of the ones that we're gonna have to address. Like I said, once everybody reviews the order of conditions that exist right now, and it's about a lot of those things you just said, that it's gonna be on the new order of conditions, to review and stuff, so,
Okay, you mean what we,
like as far as days that are
what
worked,
we develop,
yes,
to develop a more comprehensive,
right,
schedule.
right. And then also we'll have to reach out to, 3 different engineering firms and, see who will, get back to us and how much it would cost and whatnot, you know?
Okay, all right,
Because not, you know, everybody's here for one permit holder, but it has to be, you know, addressed across the board. It can't just be for one permit holder.
no,
You know,
everything has
so-
to be consistent.
It has to be consistent,
Yes.
so,
What about, can we, look at, what each permit sends us quarterly to you? It includes, we may wanna expand that.
Instead of just the finances, the yardage.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I mean, you know, it's like, how do we explain questions to the public? So we need to know a little more about, what is going from bog to bog, or, property to bog, or property to commercial, or property to another cranberry grower.
one of the things that I was thinking about, and I don't even know if it's, doable, is that, can there be a dedicated, one of the dedicated pits just for agricultural?
You mean on a big grower who sells more than one
Yeah, right,
direction?
right.
What about a small permit though? Smaller
Well,
permit?
a smaller permit isn't,
I mean, say we're doing 50,000 yards.
well, I'm talking about the ones with the excessive trucks, like,
Oh, yeah,
you know what I mean,
all right.
that are in the business of, you know, so. I don't know, it's just ideas that we
Yeah,
can go
that's-
over, you
that's
know.
what we're kind
So I
of
mean,
doing right
if there
now.
was one dedicated pit that was strictly for agricultural, then that takes that out of the picture of.
Yeah, then you know
Right.
everything that's going, but our system, they sell materials to another cranberry operation, that's the 10 cents.
Right.
Selling for strictly commercial is 25 cents.
Not out of an
No,
agricultural permit for a logger.
not out of an
No,
agricultural permit.
No, I'm not talking about that. But like, that's strictly commercial reasons. No,
Well, they're a business, they're zoned, they're a
they're not,
business,
they're not anything.
they're not,
Just because it's
they're not an agricultural.
log, it doesn't matter what
They're
it's
not
called.
subject to
It's not permitted,
Right,
then it can't go to a concrete company.
yeah,
To
well,
get
they're zoned
that
out, they're zoned out as commercial, it's not agricultural, you know, so. The 25 cents was for like,
That's a
44 sand and gravel SLT,
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah,
it's gonna be it's a commercial permit,
Yeah.
right, it's not agricultural.
Anyway.
But, yeah,
To
but there's a
see-
lot to think about.
Just to see the report that comes from a permit
Right.
on a quarter, so that we know, is there something we want to add to that?
Yeah. Especially if there's like phases too, like we said, like, you know, we should have it itemized as coming out of permit X, phase X, the money out of it's out of phase, you know,
Yep.
which phase it is and which permit and stuff, so, you know, the more information we have, the better off we can answer questions,
Okay.
so,
Um,
it's just a matter of coming up with that, correct?
Do we want to involve town council on any of this process?
I think all of it,
all of it.
All of it?
all of it, yeah.
Okay, to make sure
Yes,
that it's
absolutely.
acceptable in the future.
Yes.
And have we covered the lake?
Right, I think it all has to, I think we have to come up with our ideas, and then I think we have to have, town council sit in there and tell us that, you know, this is viable, this isn't, you know.
So if we, at our next meeting, start to study this outline
Yep.
and go through it and add some things that we gotta get somewhat of a format that we
We're gonna
want to
get a
change
new format that,
before we go to town council.
yes, exactly. Exactly.
There's a engineering firm that the town uses for evaluating projects the planning board uses. I can't remember the name.
Fussinonian,
Okay, so they, that's right, Fussinonian.
they're under contract.
They,
For the town? Yeah, okay.
they might possibly be able to guide us, for a person who would double check on this, in other words,
Yeah. And I do think that when they do go out there and we do go down that road of them checking that, then there should be somebody with them from the committee also with them checking it, you know, so.
Well, I was thinking about this, if you had tried to have somebody at every one of our permits, counting or trying to keep track of truckloads individually, that would be kind of outrageous.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So the system that we do have with an engineer certifying the amount of material that's there, and then we get a little better process
Right,
that we can follow, we can match them up better.
right, and I plan on reaching out to every permit holder anyways, and, to tell them that we are in, you know, we are gonna be revamping the conditions and stuff. So, just, you know, cause they should be involved with it too, so even on the existing permits, to let them know what's gonna happen, what's going on. So, even some of their input might help us, you know, so. So that's what I'm gonna start doing.
So this 80-year-old guy here, right here, he has trouble at times here following this thing.
I'd like to make a suggestion, if I may, to that is, if you have an area that you're taking out of, say, like Site 24, and you have, say, early black and house variety bogs that are still there.
I'm sorry, did you sign the sheet? I'm sorry, can you?
Yeah, I did.
Say who you are, please?
Joseph Tripp.
Joseph Tripp. Yeah.
Yep, so if you have early blacks, a house, or something like that in an area, and you're taking sand out of there, and you plan on renovating them bogs in the future, I would suggest that maybe that yardage, has to be taken into account before they renovate, before they take all the sand out of there, to not renovate the bog and then have to haul sand in, just less of a environmental impact on, you know? Just a suggestion, and, you know, something to think about, honestly, you know?
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of going over things to make sure we get it right, and, just to make sure we get it right and it's better. So anything you do will be an improvement, so. Yeah.
I have to go, I just wanna say thank you. I was just curious of where it's all going, that's all.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
going out, and I wonder where it all goes. I hate to see it go,
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
yeah,
But just was curious that the accountability is there,
right.
you know, that's
Yeah.
all.
All right.
So thank you for all that you do.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Michael, you have anything? Jim? Okay, John? All set?
That's it.
I think we got a direction.
Yep. Just got someone, all right, so, any other business, Darlene with, just wanna schedule some site visits now, we gotta keep,
Oh, yeah.
on that.
We haven't done our spring schedule, what
No,
we're
right.
gonna do.
Well, yeah. Yep. So, how many can, what's the date today, the 23rd, correct?
When would our next meeting be?
Well, our next meeting
Third Wednesday?
would be scheduled for the 28th of July.
Our next meeting would be July 28th.
Yep.
Okay, so now what would you like to do with a schedule of visitation?
Alright, so the weekend of the 4th, I'm assuming everybody's doing something, so we either have, 17th or the 24th. 17th.
I would suggest the 24th if possible, because it'll be then fresh when we come to the meeting,
Yes,
and,
24th is Saturday?
Yeah.
yes, it's a Saturday.
That's not Old Home Day, right? That's the 31st.
Oh, Lord,
Oh,
you're
I'm not
probably
sure.
right.
Is it?
I think Old Home
Probably
Day is
is.
go to the Saturday before that?
I actually
Which
think
would
it
be the
might be the
17th.
31st though,
I think it
Old
is.
Home Day, the 31st. It's usually the last Saturday.
Usually the one
Yeah.
in the third one, isn't it?
Okay, so Old Home Day would be the 31st.
It's usually the
So
last
you might be
Saturday, I don't
okay.
have it. I thought I did.
Like you look up the Carver 5 mile and that'll show it.
So we wanna stick with the
The 20th.
24th?
I think you should be safe, I think it is the
And
31st.
if you,
And what time, 7?
So,
Haven't figured out yet.
if you decide, or maybe you can decide, Bob, what sites you think we could handle on that given day,
yeah,
and then you could, text us.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, because, I can go through my notes just to see the last ones that we did visit, and then pick some new ones. So how, my thing is, so if we start, would you say 7, Michael? You were? Oh, I was gonna say 6.
I'm saying eight.
8 o'clock, I mean, is everybody good from like 8 to 12, if we did like 4 visits?
Yeah.
Does that sound good to everybody?
8
And then, we'll go over that and I'll, let Darlene know what,
Mhm.
for it will be,
Okay,
and then we'll relay it by
so
email.
you're not sure where you're actually meeting, so you let them know.
We gotta
Yes,
figure it out anyway, but we-
Yeah,
right.
Can you send us, Bob, somehow cell phone numbers of the fellow members?
All the committee members?
That would
I
help
put
us,
something together because I got
Just-
everybody's today.
just so we can
Mm-hmm,
text back.
Darlene can send everybody by email,
Okay.
everybody's,
Can you, that would be
Yes.
good, that would be good, especially where my cell phone went for a swim 2 weeks ago.
What was it swimming for?
You know what I was doing, I was weeding,
Oh,
and it fell into the water.
It's the Christmas thing, we.
Oh,
alright, so that's the, we'll get those site visits, on a schedule, and everybody will be notified.
do we have to tell the public about the site meeting beforehand? Or no?
No,
You mean where we're going,
Yes.
where we're gonna be going?
Yes.
Well, we have to go through,
I know you
visiting
choose
last.
where, but when we ultimately decide on.
Well, if we have
on the
Area
thing,
58 taking our meeting on the 28th,
Yep.
which I would like to,
yes, I'll arrange that.
they'll know the site visits that we visited,
Okay,
'cause
But
it'll-
do
but
we
I'm
don't
talking
have
about
to say-
telling it,
We don't have to make notice of that.
We don't have
I
to give
think,
notice.
because that's
No,
not a
No.
whole committee meeting.
Or technically, it's a public meeting, but the public's not invited.
okay,
So it should be on the Carver website, on the calendar. that the
Kinda like
municipal
the,
committee is
agenda
having
item.
various site visits.
site visits,
So
right.
it's posted out there, but they
Right.
do, but the public is not invited, because technically the public would be trespassing.
Right,
So they're not invited, and they wouldn't be able to discuss and debate anyhow,
right.
neither can the committee.
thank you
So-
very much for.
But ZBA does it,
And they posted right up at the,
they put it right on the Carver
Yeah.
website, right on the calendar.
so once we, determine that, Darlene, we'll post it right on the website,
Okay.
so. Everything right, so. Any other business?
So we're gonna have Area 58 come in for the next meeting, and then every meeting after
we're
that.
planning on that.
Yes.
We plan on that.
Yeah.
And, would we,
How many committees do they do now? They do everybody, right?
Not everybody.
No, not everybody.
Not everybody?
No, they do, obviously, Concom, FinCom,
Yeah.
Select Board, Planning,
Zoning board of appeals?
they do ZBA, I don't think they do rec. I think that's it. I don't
So
think
they
do
only do it in the
recreation, they
selectmen's
don't,
room?
they do
Yes,
the
I was
selectmen's
just
room,
going
yeah, and
to-
that's all pre-wired, but if you have it down here, they'll bring all the portable stuff and set up.
Mm-hmm.
You have it in the room over there, they do the same
Right.
thing.
Right.
So you can have it wherever you want it. We choose the selectmen's chamber only because it's already pre-wired to
Right.
go.
Right.
So you just sit down at the table and you're off to the races, and if
Right.
that room's not being used, you can certainly
Right,
just
you
check
could-
with,
you
Yeah.
could go up there.
Elaine will get you, the selectmen's office is the only one that reserves that room.
Right.
The town clerk reserves
Right.
the other ones, so if you're gonna use the selectmen's, just let Elaine
I'll
or
speak
Shelby
to
know
them
about.
to see what, and I think that they meet a lot on Tuesday nights, so Wednesday might be a good night. It seems like when we're here on Wednesday nights, there's nobody upstairs, so.
The
I think that
Concom
might
has
work.
usually
Oh, that's
First
right,
and third
yes,
Wednesday.
the first and third, so if we're the last,
Right.
okay,
So
thank
we're
you,
the
Jim.
last Wednesday. So that should work out, okay. Any other business? Michael? No. Jim?
Move that we adjourn.
No.
I like his ideas though.
Can I get a second?
Second?
Okay.
You have all of
She
them?
did, she probably did not. Okay,
I'm
Jim
sorry.
seconded.
Jim seconded,
I
Okay,
move
thank
we
you.
adjourn, Jim second.
Thank you, Dave.
all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned until 28th.
Now, our first order of business tomorrow is to call Area 58 and make sure you're gonna be.
Yeah,
Right.
No
Yeah.
problem.
No, yeah.
No,
We're
thank
giving
you.
125 meetings a year for free, and then all three towns are. And if we go over that, Plimpton gives us what they don't use. So we've never gone over the 125
I
meetings.
didn't know that, but I just
So
don't know what the
Darlene is
manning,
gonna,
I'll coordinate that.
what the
Okay.
strength is like.
Right.
It's just safety for the group.
If you could just, when you do, you could just, you know, copy everybody on email.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a question?
You can stop this now, the meeting is over. We've adjourned. So we're done.
But it's, I'm still on public property,
But the meeting is over.
yeah.
So I'd like you to disconnect. I don't consent to being videotaped any further. How's that?
Well, you can't do that in a public
I
space.
certainly can. The
Yes,
meeting's
you
been
can.
adjourned. You are now
It's
trespassing.
no longer public.